Now, when it comes to AR-15s in California, one of the most common ways to actually make your gun compliant is by going what's called featureless. This is my personal recommendation as what I think is the best as far as featureless versus fixed mag, but today we're only going to be talking about featureless. We're going to talk about what makes it a featureless gun, and we're going to talk about what my personal recommendations are. So, what is a featureless AR-15? Well, when you look at the assault weapon ban, it says a semi-auto centerfire rifle with detachable magazines that has any of the following features is illegal. Now, this gun doesn't have them, but I'm going to list off those features for you and show the penal code right here. Now, that is a pistol grip, a thumbhole stock or telescoping or collapsing stock, a forward pistol grip, or a flash hider. Now, flare launchers are also an evil feature, but seeing as nobody puts flare launchers on their AR-15s, we're not going to really talk about those today. So let's talk about this featureless gun that I have here and some of the options that you may have. We're going to start from tip to butt and work our way down. So, the flash hider. Flash hiders in the state of California are considered an evil feature on these semi-auto centerfire with detachable magazine guns. Now, what is a flash hider? A flash hider is something that's typical like your A2 bird cage or those three-prong muzzle devices, and what they do is reduce the flash signature to yourself and others, making it less bright and less concussive to the people around you. Now, that's a definite big benefit, but unfortunately California considers that evil and unlawful and illegal. However, if you get what's called a muzzle break, like this typical 3-port break, or this micro break by V7 Industries, I really like it. What muzzle brakes do is muzzle brakes reduce the felt recoil and the muzzle rise. However, the downside is that they are much louder and they produce a lot of concussive force. They also make a much brighter flash signature. You might ask yourself, well, why are muzzle brakes legal, but why is a flash hider illegal? Well, that's because in 1994, when this bill was written, it was typically that AR-15 style rifles had the typical A2 birdcage or 3-prong flash hiding muzzle device, and that's what they had, so that's what they wrote into law. These guns do not meet that criteria because they have muzzle brakes. There's a lot of great options out there. I used to have this big ol' honking thing on the end of it, but over time I realized that the amount of recoil reduction wasn't really super necessary, so I wanted something minimal. So I went with these on all of my featureless guns. This is the V7 Weapon Systems Micro Break. It's got a simple 4-port design, straight through the sides, straight through the top, and one small hole at the exit. I like it, it works well, it's fairly lightweight, and it's cheap. They're about 40, 45 bucks, whereas some muzzle brakes can cost you $150. So that's my personal recommendation. You can also just go with a typical thread protector if you don't actually want to get a muzzle device, or if you don't want something that's super loud for shooting indoors. So that's really all there is to say about the muzzle devices. Don't go with a flash hider. If the manufacturer says it has flash hiding capabilities, or if it looks like this where it's got a big exit hole and several flash hiding ports on it, versus a muzzle brake with a small hole and ports that are meant to reduce the felt recoil, avoid it. My recommendation is go with something like this, or go with something that's a typical 3-port design with a small exit hole. That is very clearly a muzzle brake and not a flash hider. Now, working to the rear. A forward pistol grip. Now, what does that mean? What can you actually have on this gun? Well, you can actually have something like an angled grip or a hand stop, but you cannot have something that allows a pistol style grasp at the front of the gun. So, all of you people with vertical foregrips can't have those on a featureless gun, but if you have a small hand stop or a small angled grip, that is legal. On this gun, I've chose to just go slick, but on some previous builds, I've used the BCM kinesthetic angled grip. So we've talked about flash hiders, we've talked about vertical forward grips or forward pistol grips. Now, the hardest part to work around by far is going to be the pistol grip, but I'm going to talk about the stock first. So this gun here, this looks like a traditional adjustable stock. It even has this lever here that you would typically adjust if it was adjustable. But on this gun, I've actually modified it so that this no longer actually adjusts. This is fixed in place and it is no longer an adjusting or telescoping stock. That's my personal recommendation. Find a stock that you like on its merits alone and then modify it. However, some people prefer to go with a fully fixed stock like the Magpul MOE stocks because it simply looks fixed, or a typical A2 stock because it looks fixed and there is no questioning that that is a fixed stock. Me personally, and like most people out there, we choose to go with something like this that is a normal stock and then fix it in place. This one was actually fixed in place without actually buying any additional parts. But there are several manufacturers out there that make, like this is by Cross Armory, you just strap it around and it locks your stock wherever you want to put it. You can also get the Strike Industries Stock Stop for about $5–6, and that's a great option for fixing whatever stock you want in place. So there are options out there, but my recommendation is find a stock you like, get something that will fix it in place or permanently affix it yourself. So the hardest part to actually work around, the pistol grip. This is the one that causes people the most trouble when it comes to going featureless, because this is the part that you actually are interacting with the most. The pistol grip on a gun allows you to have a typical normal grip where your thumb wraps around it like this. This is a pistol grip. This gun here does not have a pistol grip. There are many grips like it, whether you choose to go with the Featureless Arms Liberal grip like I have on this gun, the Sparrow Dynamics grip, the Hammerhead grip by Exile Machining, or the maybe questionably legal Juggernaut Tactical. You can also go with something like the Resurgent grip, but I personally don't have that in my inventory at this moment as I am lending it to a friend. This grip here and all the other grips that I have talked about, I have done videos on, and I will link those below in a title called Featureless Grips. 3 of them are in their own video. The Juggernaut Tactical is in its own by itself, so it's just something to think about. The grips themselves, they're not super uncomfortable. I actually really like them in the sense of what they're capable of doing within the law. There's fin grips out there that don't allow you to wrap your hand around at all, and I'm really not a fan of those simply because they don't give me as much control. You can see how much more I have to struggle to hold it, whereas when I wrap my thumb around it, this becomes a lot more easy because I have actual dominance over the gun. And if you're just doing bench rest shooting, a fin grip ain't bad because you're just sitting there, plink, 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 plink. But if you're running around and doing reloads and doing any sort of dynamic movement, especially in the sun, especially when it's hot, especially if you're running around, wrapping your thumb around the gun is a major key that you need to consider. And that's why I personally chose to go that route. And for those of you that are used to a more traditional rifle stock feel, there's also what's called the Thorson. This goes over the buffer tube, this attaches to where the pistol grip goes, and this gives you a more traditional rifle stock feel. And this is personally what I recommend and what I like the most, but it's super heavy, and that's ultimately why I took it off most of my guns. I used to really like the Thorson stock, but for what it is, it's kind of expensive and it's heavy, so I chose to go with something else just for testing purposes. Ended up really sticking on, you know, the Featureless Arms or the Sparrow Dynamics style grips. The Juggernaut is also very nice, but the Juggernaut is maybe questionably legal, so feel free to watch my video on that. The Thorson is a really great all-in-one, very solid, very sturdy, purpose-built solution. If you want a bench rest gun, I think it's awesome. If you want a long-range target gun, it's also awesome, simply because how sturdy and strong it is. But there's a lot of options. You got to kind of choose what's best for you. So we've talked about the actual parts, and now I want to talk about some like pro tips or some benefits that comes with having a featureless gun. Well, for starters, this featureless gun can use my 60-round drum mags that I acquired during Freedom Week. If you want to know how I acquired these and why that matters to you, even if you maybe don't have any right now, watch this video on Freedom Week and how the bigger implications are still affecting us. This gun here has detachable magazines and can use a normal 30-round, 60-round, anything over 11-round magazine that you want. Because it is not a fixed magazine, it can use standard capacity magazines. That's, all in all, probably the biggest benefit. Detachable 60-round or detachable 30-round mags in a featureless gun automatically makes it superior to any fixed mag solution. People are going to ride and die for the fixed mag because it has a pistol grip, but I guarantee you in a gunfight I would value 30-round mags that are detachable much more than 10-round mags that I got to break the action open for because I have a pistol grip. Because ultimately, a mild discomfort right here is much less important to me than capacity and ease of use of the gun. So for me, featureless is the way to go. Now, on every featureless gun, in my mind, I think you absolutely have to have an actual ambidextrous safety, because especially if you have a fin grip, or on this one too, it's kind of hard for me to reach the safety with my right hand. So you can see my thumb, I can get it, I definitely can't get it back. So I have to have that safety on the right side of the gun. So I'm shooting, 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 come up, boom, 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 whatever I want to do. having that left side or having that ambi safety is crucial to me because it allows me to work the gun from both sides, allows me to shoot it, take it off safe, whatever I need to do without having to reach under the bottom. If I had a fin grip, here's what it would look like if I did not have an ambidextrous safety. So I'm on safe and then I can shoot, versus if I had a fin grip and I had an ambi safety, I can flick it off on the right side of the gun, pull the trigger, action cycles, work it from both sides if I want to. The next tip that I'm going to talk about is more of a small, minor convenience thing, because for me, all of these grips, what they typically have in common is, so you see here, on this grip here, what I've actually done to the receiver extension and on this end plate is I've actually filed it down and smoothed it down a little bit, because when you grab up on these, your thumb really webs in, your thumb web really digs in to that actual end plate and receiver extension. So for me, what that does is it caused a little bit of irritation over a long day shooting. So all I did was I took a small file and I beveled it out. Nowadays, you don't need to do that. I did this back in like 2015, but under the current situation, you can just buy beveled end plates from Resurgent Arms, I believe. And what they are is they're just a little bit thicker and they have a better rounded out profile so that it meets up with their grip in a more smooth way. So you're not having to permanently modify the end plate and a little bit of the receiver extension. So something that I kind of wanted to talk about that most people don't necessarily think of when they go featureless. On a normal pistol grip gun, because the angle of the pistol grip is right here, you can get those end plate quick detach sling attachment points that would go right here, and it's very nice because you can then rotate hands easily and then you're all in the clear. You're not having this dangle out in the way. But when you have a featureless gun, because of the angle, you're not going to be able to get your thumb in there and grab the gun while this sling attachment point is in there. See, it's just hard to even get it to get in there just for demonstration purposes. So when you're using a sling attachment point for a featureless gun, I have yet to find a really good single point solution, because even like a gun like this, where I have the attachment point at the end of the stock right here, it hangs pretty low, and I find it always hanging down way too low for me. And as that might be a personal problem, as I am 6'2" and very skinny, but I found that I haven't quite enjoyed single point slings as much on a featureless gun. Whereas on guns that have pistol grips and have attachment points at the end of the receiver extension, I love it because it enables me to just easily swap hands over, swap hands back without that sling dangling and getting in the way. But on this setup, I've found that it definitely gets in the way. So I typically end up running a 2-point sling. So those were some of my personal recommendations on featureless guns in California. When it comes to featureless, I would say that I've tried pretty much every option out there. I'm not a fan of fin grips simply because of the lack of control you get, but the other grips that are out there on the market do give you a lot of control, do give you a reasonable level of comfort. It allows you to manipulate the gun in a way that's typical of a normal AR-15. You just got to get a stock that you can able to fix in place in a position that works well for you. You can get normal detachable magazines as opposed to a fixed mag setup that's limited legally to 10 rounds. And they perform well because all in all, what you're getting is a normal gun with some weird ergonomics. And that's really, in my opinion, much better than a fixed mag gun of any type. And I know there's a lot of really fast fixed mag options out there, but the simplicity of the AR-15 platform partially comes in from how you swap mags out, and I think you're adding a lot of complexity when you go fixed mag. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or things that you enjoy about featureless guns, things that you've worked with, what your favorite parts for featureless guns are, go ahead and let me know in the comments down below so we can have that discussion. I enjoy learning more things. If there's a product that you've been introduced to for featureless that has helped you, I would love to hear about it because I always like testing things out and sharing that with my viewers. But in my eyes, featureless is definitely the way to go. I prefer over pretty much every other option out there, except for maybe the Title ones, which we're going to be talking about more in the future. So if you have any questions, leave a comment below. As always, have fun, be safe, stay dangerous. Peace.